Which major arcana archetype might you be living through at the moment? Not which card describes your personality, not which card happens to appear in a reading, but which archetypal stage most closely reflects the deeper experiences unfolding in your life right now. Are you standing at the beginning of something new? Are you being asked to reclaim your agency? Are relationships revealing something important about who you are? Are you caught in conflict, surrender, rupture, healing, awakening, or completion? Because the major arcana are not only symbolic images, they're living pathways of human experience. And at different points in your life, particular archetypes can become especially active. They show up through the situations being faced, the emotions that dominate us, the patterns that repeat, the capacities we're being asked to develop, and the transformations that can no longer be avoided. So in this video, we're going to explore how you can begin recognizing which major arcana archetype may be most active in your life right now, and what that stage may be asking you to understand, release, strengthen, or embody. Welcome back to Tarot Major Arcana. In the previous videos, we've explored what the major arcana really are, how the 22 cards form a journey of inner transformation, how the tarot can be used for self-development, how the cards connect with the tree of life, why negative life patterns repeat, and how the major arcana can reveal hidden shadow dynamics. I've just recently published a comprehensive book where I go into all of the transformational details of each of the 22 archetypes and their healthy, blocked, and shadow aspects. I explain exactly how to recognize them, what they mean, and the positive, insightful power you can access through them. The book is called The Tarot Major Arcana. You can get it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below this video. Now back to the video. I want to bring the power of the tarot archetypes together in a more personal and reflective way, because one thing to understand the major arcana conceptually, it's another thing to recognize that they're part of the journey you're living right now. Perhaps you're in a fool stage, standing at a threshold without certainty. Perhaps you're living through the Lovers, facing a choice that will reveal your values. Perhaps the Hangman describes a period where movement has stopped and surrender is becoming unavoidable. Perhaps the Tower reflects a structure collapsing around you. Perhaps the Star speaks to a quiet rebuilding that follows. Or perhaps the world is active and your challenge is not to begin again, but to complete, integrate, and fully inhabit what you've already become. The major arcana can help us orientate ourselves within these experiences, but we need to use them carefully. This is not a personality test. You're not one fixed card, and life is really organized around only one archetype at a time. What we're looking for is the pattern that feels most active right now, the central movement, the deeper question beneath the circumstances. One of the first things to understand is that no one is ever simply the emperor or the moon or the devil or the star. We all contain the potential of every archetype. At different times, different energies become more visible. One may describe what's happening externally, another may describe your emotional response to it, another may reveal shadow that's overcomplicating the situation, and another may represent the required direction for growth. For example, someone may outwardly be living through the Tower because a relationship, career, or identity has suddenly collapsed. But inwardly, the real developmental movement may be the Hangman, asking them to stop forcing and surrender their old perspective. The shadow may involve the devil, revealing an attachment that kept the false structure in place. And the next healing direction may be the star. So asking which archetype you're living doesn't mean forcing your whole experience into one card. It means identifying the central archetypal field around which the current experience appears to be organized. You could easily think of it as an archetypal constellation. There may be several cards present, but one often feels like the main doorway, or, perhaps at times, the brick wall. To recognize the archetype most active in your life is not to look only at the event, but to begin looking at the deeper pattern. Two people may both lose a job, but be living a different archetypal experience. For one person, it may be the Tower. A structure they believed was secure has collapsed. For another, it may be death, the role that has reached its natural ending and they're being asked to release an old identity. For another, it may be the Fool. The apparent loss is actually creating the threshold for a completely new beginning and new direction. The outer circumstance doesn't determine the card by itself. The deeper question does. So begin by asking, what is this situation really asking of me? What keeps repeating? What's asking to be ended? What's trying to begin? What am I resisting? What capacity am I being asked to develop? What truth is becoming impossible for me to ignore? These questions help reveal the archetypal pattern beneath the surface story. So let's go through each card. We must obviously begin with the early stages of any journey, which is the Fool. You may be living the Fool when life is asking you to step inside something new without having all the answers. Perhaps you've outgrown an old direction, but don't yet know exactly where the new path leads. There may be excitement, uncertainty, openness, and risk. The central question for the Fool is, am I willing to begin before I feel completely ready? In a healthy form, the Fool brings trust, possibility, spontaneity, and courageous movement. In a blocked form, it may appear as fear of beginning, paralysis, or a need for guarantees that life currently just can't provide. In shadow, it may become impulsivity, avoidance of responsibility, or constant restarting without commitment. You may be living the Fool if you're feeling called forward, but certainty is unavailable. Next is the Magician. The Magician becomes active when the central issue is agency, your voice, and your intention. Having the ability to direct your energy and act consciously, you may be living the Magician if life is asking you to stop waiting and begin using the resources already available to you. Its question is, where am I being asked to claim my power to act? A blocked magician may struggle to speak, choose, initiate, or believe they can influence their circumstances. A shadow magician may use language, charm, performance, or control to manage perception rather than communicate honestly. The healthier movement is towards clear, congruent agency. Then we come to the High Priestess. The High Priestess becomes active when the movement is inward, when action is not the only answer, when something needs to be sensed, received, or understood beneath the surface. Her question is, what do I already know inwardly that I've not yet acknowledged? You may be living this archetype if you're being asked to trust intuition, tolerate silence, wait for deeper clarity, or recognize hidden truth. Blocked, this may feel like disconnection from intuition. Shadowed, it may become withholding, emotional retreat, or hiding behind mystery. Next, we have the Empress. You may be living the Empress when questions of nourishment, receiving, creativity, care, embodiment, or self-worth become central. Her question is, what needs to be nourished, and am I allowing myself to receive? The Empress often appears when someone has become depleted through chronic overgiving, or life is asking them to reconnect with pleasure, creativity, the body, or a more fertile relationship with themselves. In shadow, care can become engulfment and self-erasure. The developmental movement is not simply to give more, but to restore a healthier flow between giving and receiving. As we move now into the Emperor. The Emperor is active when life centers on structure, responsibility, boundaries, authority, stability, or self-command. His question is, what must I now hold, organize, protect, or take responsibility for? You may be living the Emperor if you need firmer boundaries, clearer leadership, stronger decision-making, or more consistency. Blocked, this may show up as passivity, disorganization, or difficulty holding your position. Shadowed, it may become rigidity, domination, or compulsive control. The mature emperor creates order without becoming oppressive. Then there's the teachings and traditions of the Hierophant. The Hierophant becomes active around belief, inherited values, teaching, tradition, belonging, and social conditioning. Its question is, which beliefs am I consciously choosing and which am I merely repeating? You may be living this archetype if you are questioning family expectations, religious conditioning, professional rules, or the systems that once gave you identity. This can be a stage of finding wise guidance, but it may also require separating living values from inherited dogma. As we now relate with the lovers become active when relationships, choice, polarity, vulnerability, or alignment are central. This archetype is not only about romance, it often appears when you must decide whether your choices reflect your deeper values. The question is, what am I truly choosing, and what does that choice reveal about me? You may be living the lovers if a relationship is acting as a mirror, if attraction and truth are in tension, if you're losing yourself in another person, or if you're being asked to choose between competing paths. The shadow may involve projection, dependency, triangulation, or confusing longing with genuine alignment. Next, the chariot. The chariot becomes active when movement requires focus, discipline, direction, and self-command. Its question is, can I direct my energy without forcing or fragmenting myself? You may be living the chariot if you're trying to bring conflicting drives into one direction. Perhaps you need momentum. You may need to commit or need to stop allowing inner conflict to pull you apart. But the shadow chariot warns against using pressure, ambition, or control to override emotion until burnout becomes inevitable. Now, strength. Strength appears when the central work involves emotion, instinct, courage, or intensity. Its question is, can I stay present with strong energy without suppressing or being ruled by it? You may be living strength if anger, fear, grief, desire, or vulnerability requires a more conscious relationship. Strength is not domination, it's regulation. It's the capacity to remain present in the face of intensity. If blocked, it may feel like collapse or fear of strong feeling. In shadow, it may become suppression, brittle control, or covert aggression. The hermit's next. The hermit becomes active when life asks you to step away from noise and seek a deeper truth. Its question is, what can only be understood in solitude? You may be living the hermit if external answers no longer satisfy, if you need reflection, retreat, discernment, or a reassessment of your direction. But it's also important to distinguish healthy solitude from defensive isolation. The hermit withdraws in order to return with greater clarity. The shadow hermit withdraws in order to never risk being reached. As the cycle now reaches the Wheel of Fortune, the Wheel of Fortune becomes active when life is showing you a cycle. Something is turning, repeating, or changing. Its question is, what pattern is returning and what am I being asked to recognize? You may be living this archetype if circumstances feel strangely familiar. If you're saying, here I am again. The wheel invites pattern recognition rather than fatalism. The point is not that you're helpless before fate. The point is that conscious cycles continue until they're met more consciously. And now we have justice bringing us to fairness. Justice becomes active when truth, consequence, responsibility, fairness, and alignment are central. Its question is, what truth must now be faced clearly? You may be living justice if a decision has consequences, if you need to take responsibility, if a relationship or situation requires honest evaluation. Healthy justice restores proportion. Blocked justice avoids truth. Shadow justice becomes harsh, punitive, or self-condemning. Next, the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man appears when forcing has stopped working, when movement is suspended, when a deeper perspective can only emerge through surrender. Its question is, what am I still trying to force that must be released? You may be living the Hanged Man if you feel stuck between worlds. The old direction no longer works, but the new one has not yet been fully formed. This can be a meaningful pause, but shadow may turn it into passivity, martyrdom, or endless waiting. The difference lies in whether the suspension has created new awareness. As we next meet death. Death becomes active when something has reached completion and must be released. Its question is, what is already over, even if I've not fully accepted it yet? You may be living death if a relationship, identity, role, belief, or life stage can no longer continue in its previous form. This is not necessarily sudden destruction. It may be a slow recognition that life has already moved on. The work is letting go of what has ended so that transformation can become possible. As healing now can begin with temperance. Temperance appears when the work is integration, healing, regulation, and balance. Its question is, what within me needs to be brought into a healthier relationship? You may be living temperance after a period of excess, fragmentation, illness, emotional turbulence, or crisis. It's often a quieter archetype, no dramatic breakthrough, just simply patient rebalancing. The shadow form can look like false calm or over control. Real temperance is alive, adaptive, and flowing. Next, we arrive at the devil. The devil becomes active when attachment, shame, compulsion, dependency, or false bondage are central. Its question is, what am I still giving my power to? You may be living the devil if you know a pattern is harmful, but feel unable to leave it. If chemistry overrides truth, if shame keeps you trapped, if desire, fear, or identity has become fused with something that diminishes you. The devil is not condemnation, it's recognition. The first movement towards freedom is seeing the chain clearly. Then, the tower. The tower becomes active when false structure collapses. Its question is, what can no longer be sustained? You may be living the tower if something you believed was stable has broken open. A career, a relationship, an identity, a belief about yourself or about your life. The tower can feel quite chaotic, but it often exposes instability that already existed. Its deeper work is revelation, as the star can now appear. The star is there for you after rupture. It's the archetype of restoration, hope, openness, and trust slowly returning. Its question is, what within me is ready to be open again? You may be living the star if the worst has passed, but you're still rebuilding. Healing is beginning, but it may still be fragile. The star doesn't demand immediate certainty. It invites replenishment. As we arrive at the moon becomes active when clarity is incomplete. Its territory includes uncertainty, instinct, projection, fear, imagination, and unconscious material. Its question is, what do I know and what am I only imagining? You may be living the moon if you feel emotionally disorientated, if old fears are shaping present perception, if you're trying to reach certainty before enough has been revealed. The task is not to force clarity, it's to remain orientated while moving through what's unclear. The light can now return with the sun. The sun becomes active when vitality, joy, visibility, truth, and authentic expressions are returning, and its question is, what would it mean to be fully alive and seen? You may be living the sun if life is asking you to stop shrinking, to become more visible, to allow joy, to reconnect with confidence, simplicity, or creative life force. The shadow sun becomes force positivity or performative brightness. Healthy sun does not deny pain. It expresses aliveness after having moved through it. Judgment becomes active when the deeper calling can no longer be ignored. Its question is, what am I being called to rise into? You may be living judgment if an old identity feels too small, if something in you is awakening, if you can no longer return to who you were before. This is not simply self-improvement. It's an effective response and a willingness to answer what life is now asking of you. And finally, the world. The world becomes active when the central movement is completion, integration, embodiment, and arrival. Its question is, can I allow this cycle to complete fully? You may be living the world if something is ready to land, a project, a phase of healing, a relationship with yourself, or simply the closing of a life chapter. But completion can be frightening. Some people, instead of completing, repeatedly begin again because finishing requires them to inhabit what they have become. The world asks us not whether you can achieve something, but whether you can receive and embody its completion. So how do you identify which archetype may be most active for you now? Begin with these questions. What is the dominant emotional tone of your life at the moment? What themes keep returning? What capacity does life seem to be asking you to develop? What are you resisting? What are you clinging to? What may well be collapsing? And what ultimately is trying to emerge? Then notice which Major Arcana best reflects that movement. Don't choose the card that you like the most. Choose the one that describes the actual development demand. The card that feels most relevant may not be the most comfortable. It may be precisely the archetype you're resisting, and an invitation to relate to the present stage more consciously. The Major Arcana can help you recognize the deeper stage of transformation you may be living through right now, not by reducing life to one card, not by predicting every outcome, but by revealing the archetypal movement beneath the circumstances. The beginning, the choice, the discipline, the conflict, the surrender, the rupture, the healing, awakening, integration, and completion. You may be living several archetypes at once, but one question often stands at the center. One movement feels most active. One developmental challenge is asking to be met. And when you recognize that, the Major Arcana can become more than symbolic images to you. They become a map for conscious participation in your own transformation. So take a moment and ask yourself, and share in the comments, what is the central pattern of your life right now? Which Major Arcana archetype reflects that most closely? And what is that archetype asking you to do, understand, release, or embody? If this deeper approach to tarot and personal transformation resonates with you, please do like this video and subscribe to the channel, as it will help us bring you so much more in the future as we continue exploring the Major Arcana as living pathways of personal development, including the full card-by-card journey from the Fool through to the World that will be coming up next. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.